The sun hadn't broken through the thick ash clouds in 17 days, and Marcus Davis was starting to forget what warmth felt like. He crouched on the rooftop of what used to be Henderson's hardware store on Fifth Avenue, scanning the empty streets below through the scope of his rifle. The world had gone to hell in a handbasket 3 months ago, and somehow, he was still breathing. That was more than could be said for most folks in Riverside, Montana. "Anything?" whispered a voice behind him. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd recognize that gravelly tone anywhere. That was Jake Thornton, ex-Marine, current pain in the butt, and the closest thing Marcus had to a best friend these days. "Nothing but the dead," Marcus replied, not taking his eye from the scope. "But they're getting restless down by the old pharmacy. I count maybe 20, 30 of them just shuffling around like they're waiting for something." Jake moved up beside him, his boots barely making a sound despite his 200-pound frame. The guy moved like a ghost when he wanted to. "They can smell us, man. I'm telling you, they're getting smarter." Marcus finally lowered his rifle and shot Jake a look. "Don't start with that sci-fi nonsense again. They're dead. Dead things don't think. Dead things don't walk either, brother, but here we are." Jake had a point, much as Marcus hated to admit it. Nothing about the last 3 months made a lick of sense. The infection, the collapse, the way the dead just got up and started eating the living, it was like every bad horror movie had come true all at once. Behind them, a metal door creaked open, and both men spun around, weapons raised. A young woman emerged, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her hazel eyes sharp and alert. Riley Morrison was 24, used to be a paramedic, and had saved Marcus's hide more times than he could count. She held up her hands. "Easy, cowboys. It's just me." "Damn it, Riley," Marcus breathed, lowering his weapon. "You trying to get yourself shot?" "You're too good a shot to waste a bullet on friendly fire," she said with a smirk that didn't quite reach her eyes. Nobody smiled much anymore, not for real. "We got a situation downstairs. Tommy's running a fever." Marcus's gut clenched. A fever meant one of two things: regular sickness, which was bad enough without hospitals or medicine, or the bite was infected. Tommy Reeves was just 16, a skinny kid who'd lost his whole family in the first week. The group had found him hiding in a grocery store freezer, half dead from hypothermia but still fighting. That was 2 months back. Which kind of fever? Jake asked the question they were all thinking. Riley's expression went dark. "The regular kind, I think. I checked him over twice. No bites, no scratches. But his temperature's climbing, and I'm running low on antibiotics. We need to make a supply run, and we need to do it soon." Marcus stood up, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. The wind up here was bitter cold, cutting through his worn jacket like it wasn't even there. Below them, Riverside stretched out like a graveyard. Cars sat abandoned in the streets, windows broken, doors hanging open. Bodies lay where they'd fallen, though most of those had gotten up and walked away by now. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. At least, Marcus hoped it was a dog. "The clinic on Maple," he suggested, though even saying it out loud made him nervous. They'd avoided that part of town for weeks. Too many of the dead, too many tight spaces, too many ways to get trapped. "That's our best bet," Riley confirmed. "The hospital's completely overrun, you know that. But the urgent care clinic might still have supplies. It's small, off the main drag. Maybe the dead haven't completely picked it clean." Jake was already shaking his head. "That's 6 blocks into hostile territory. We'd have to go through downtown, and downtown is crawling with those things. Last count, we estimated over 200 in that sector alone. You got a better idea?" Riley's voice had an edge to it. She cared about Tommy, they all did. The kid represented something important, something they couldn't quite put into words. Hope, maybe. A future. Proof that not everything worth saving had died. Marcus thought it over, running scenarios in his head the way he used to run plays back when he coached high school football. That felt like a lifetime ago. What if we don't go through downtown? What if we go around, take the residential streets? It's longer, but there's more cover, more escape routes. More houses means more potential dead inside, Jake countered, but Marcus could see he was considering it. More houses also means more places to hide if things go sideways, Riley added. And we can move quieter through the neighborhoods. Those downtown streets are too open, too exposed. Marcus nodded. We take 3 people. Small, fast, quiet. In and out before the dead even know we're there. Riley, you're in because you know what supplies we need. Jake, you're in because you're the best shot besides me. I'm in because somebody's got to keep you two from killing each other. Real funny, Marcus, Jake said, but there was the ghost of a smile on his face. What about the others? Riley asked. The others meant the rest of their ragtag group of survivors. There was Tommy, laid up with a fever. There was Patricia Sawyer, pushing 60, used to run the local diner, and could still cook a mean meal out of canned goods and hope. There was her grandson, Devin, who was 12 and scared but trying real hard not to show it. And there was Eric Walsh, a quiet guy in his 30s who'd been an accountant before the world ended and now spent most of his time reinforcing their defenses and calculating supply ratios. Patricia and Eric can hold down the fort, Marcus decided. Devin too. This building's solid, we've got the barricades up, and they know the protocols. We lock it down tight, we're back before nightfall. And if we're not? Jake's question hung in the air like a guillotine. Then they bug out to the secondary location like we planned. Marcus had learned the hard way that you always needed a backup plan. And a backup to the backup. That was the only way to survive when the world was trying to kill you every second of every day. They gathered the group in what used to be the hardware store's break room. It still smelled faintly of coffee, though that was probably Marcus's imagination playing tricks on him. Tommy was lying on a makeshift cot, his face flushed and sweaty. The kid tried to sit up when they entered, but Riley gently pushed him back down. Stay put, hero, she said softly. We're gonna get you fixed up. Patricia was stirring something over a camping stove, some kind of soup made from their dwindling supplies. She looked up when Marcus cleared his throat. We're heading out, he announced. Supply run to the clinic on Maple. We'll be back before dark. Patricia's weathered face creased with worry, but she nodded. She'd lived through enough to know that arguing wouldn't change anything. You be careful out there. All of you. Eric looked up from the notebook where he was tracking their inventory. We're down to 17 cans of food, 3 gallons of water, and about a week's worth of medical supplies if we ration strictly. If you can find antibiotics, painkillers, and any kind of food, we'd be in better shape. That's the plan, Marcus confirmed. He turned to Devin, who was sitting in the corner trying to look brave. You're the man of the house while we're gone, okay? You stick with Patricia and Eric, you do what they say, and you don't open those barricades for anybody but us. Got it? Devin nodded, his jaw set in determination. I got it, sir. Marcus felt a swell of something in his chest. Pride, maybe. This kid had been through hell and was still standing. That's my man. They geared up quickly and efficiently. Marcus took his hunting rifle and a baseball bat he'd wrapped in barbed wire. Jake had his service pistol and a wicked-looking machete. Riley packed light, a 9mm handgun and a backpack full of empty bags for supplies. They each took a 2-way radio, tested them, and synchronized their watches. Old school, but it worked. The exit route took them down a back stairwell they'd cleared weeks ago, through a storage room, and out into an alley that ran behind the hardware store. The smell hit Marcus first, like it always did. Death had a stench that you never got used to, a mixture of rotten copper and something else, something worse. It clung to everything now, saturated the air like humidity. The alley was clear, but they moved carefully anyway, checking corners, watching the shadows. The dead were slow, mostly, but they could be quiet when they wanted to be, and they were strong as hell. Marcus had seen a single infected rip a car door clean off its hinges. Whatever the disease did to them, it burned through their bodies like rocket fuel, making them stronger and more durable than any living person had a right to be. They reached the end of the alley and paused. Jake held up a fist, the signal to stop. He peeked around the corner, then pulled back. Two of them, shuffling around about 30 yards out. Looks like they're the slow kind. The infected came in different flavors, they'd learned. Most were slow, shambling, easy to avoid if you were smart. But some were fast, aggressive, almost like they retained some memory of how to hunt. Those were the ones that gave Marcus nightmares. "We go around," Marcus whispered. "No noise unless we absolutely have to." They moved like shadows, keeping to the sides of buildings, using parked cars for cover. The two infected never even looked their way, too focused on whatever passed for thought in their rotted brains. Marcus caught a glimpse of one as they passed, a middle-aged man in what used to be a business suit, his throat torn out, his eyes milky white and vacant. He didn't let himself wonder who the guy had been before. That way lay madness. The residential neighborhood was eerily quiet. Houses sat empty, their doors and windows dark. Some showed signs of struggle, broken glass, bloodstains, scattered belongings. Others looked almost normal, like their occupants had just stepped out for groceries and would be right back. Those were the ones that got to Marcus the most. They were 3 blocks in when Riley grabbed his arm. "There," she breathed, pointing to a house on their left. The front door was open, swinging slowly in the breeze. "Could be nothing," Jake muttered, but his hand was on his machete. "Could be something," Marcus countered. Movement caught his eye, a curtain shifting in an upstairs window. His blood ran cold. "We got eyes on us." "Second floor, left window." They froze, weapons ready. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a face appeared in the window. A living face. A woman, maybe in her 40s, with terror written all over her features. She was mouthing something, but Marcus couldn't make it out. "Help," Riley said quietly. "She's saying help." "We don't have time for this," Jake said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Marcus's mind raced. They had a mission, Tommy needed medicine, and stopping to help every survivor they found was a good way to get killed. But leaving someone behind, someone who was clearly alive and scared, that went against everything he believed in. 5 minutes, he decided. "We check it out, assess the situation. If it's a trap or too dangerous, we bail." They approached the house carefully. The front door hung open, but the interior was dark. Marcus signaled for Jake to cover the entrance while he and Riley moved in. The smell inside was bad, real bad. Something had died in here, or someone. The living room was trashed, furniture overturned, pictures smashed, dark stains on the carpet. "Hello?" Riley called out softly. "We're here to help." "Are you alone?" A voice came from upstairs, trembling and weak. "Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped up here." "They're in the basement." "They." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "How many?" he called up. "I don't know. 3, maybe 4. I've been up here for 2 days. No food, no water. Please." Marcus and Riley exchanged a look. This was getting complicated. "Jake," Marcus said into his radio. "We're going upstairs. You hold that front door. Anything tries to come up from the basement, you light it up." "Roger that," Jake's voice crackled back. The stairs creaked under their weight, each sound like a gunshot in the silence. Marcus led with his rifle, Riley right behind him. The second floor had 3 doors, 2 closed and 1 open. The open one revealed a bathroom. The woman's voice came from behind one of the closed doors. "I'm in the bedroom, the one on the right." Marcus tried the handle. "Locked." "Can you open it?" "I barricaded it." "Give me a second." They heard scraping sounds, something heavy being moved. Then the door cracked open, and the woman peered out. She looked like she'd been through hell, gaunt, dehydrated, her clothes torn and dirty. But her eyes were clear, alert. "Not infected." "Thank God," she breathed. "I thought I was going to die up here." "What's your name?" Riley asked, already pulling out a water bottle from her pack. "Amanda. Amanda Price." She took the water gratefully, drinking in small sips like Riley showed her. "I was hiding here when those things broke in. I made it upstairs, blocked the door, but I've been too scared to leave." "Okay, Amanda, here's what's going to happen," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "We're going to get you out of here, but we need to move fast and quiet. Can you do that?" Amanda nodded, determination replacing some of the fear in her eyes. "I can do that." They made it back to the stairs without incident. Jake was still at his post by the front door, tense and ready. "We good?" he asked. "We're about to find out," Marcus replied. "Let's move." They were halfway to the front door when the basement door exploded outward. The first infected came through like a freight train, moving fast, real fast. It had been a big man once, maybe 6'4", 250, and death hadn't slowed it down any. Jake reacted on pure instinct, his machete flashing in the dim light. The blade caught the infected in the neck, but it wasn't enough. The thing crashed into Jake, taking him down. Marcus didn't hesitate. His bat came down hard on the infected's skull, once, twice, 3 times. The sound was sickening, but the infected stopped moving. Jake scrambled out from under it, his face splattered with dark, congealed blood. "Go, go, go!" Marcus shouted, and they ran. 2 more infected poured out of the basement, their mouths open in silent screams. Riley fired twice, controlled shots that dropped one of them. Amanda was screaming, but she was moving, and that was what mattered. They burst out of the house into the street, and that's when Marcus realized they had a bigger problem. The gunshots had attracted attention. Infected were emerging from houses, from behind cars, from alleyways. Slow ones, fast ones, more than Marcus could count in the chaos. The quiet neighborhood had become a death trap. "Clinic's 2 blocks north." Riley yelled, already running. They ran like the devil himself was chasing them, and maybe he was. The infected gave chase, their horrible moaning filling the air. Marcus fired his rifle, dropping the closest ones, but more kept coming. It was like kicking over an anthill. Jake was on the radio. "This is Jake to base, we are compromised, repeat, we are compromised. Multiple hostiles, heading north on residential route." Eric's voice came back, staticky and worried. "Copy that. Should we prep for evac?" "Negative, hold position. We're gonna lose them and complete the mission." Jake sounded way more confident than Marcus felt. The clinic came into view, a small brick building with a parking lot full of abandoned cars. The front windows were smashed, but the structure looked intact. "There!" Marcus pointed. They sprinted across the parking lot. An infected lunged from between 2 cars, and Riley shot it without breaking stride. They reached the front entrance, and Marcus yanked the door open. "Inside, now!" They piled in, and Jake slammed the door behind them. Marcus immediately started pushing a reception desk against it, Jake joining him. Outside, the infected were gathering, pounding on the glass, on the walls. The door shook but held. "That's not gonna hold forever," Jake panted. "Doesn't have to," Riley said. She was already moving deeper into the clinic, Amanda following close behind her. We get what we came for and find another way out. These places always have back doors. The clinic was a mess. Somebody had been here before them, ransacked the place pretty good. Exam rooms stood empty, cabinets hanging open, supplies scattered across the floor. But Riley moved with purpose, checking each room, grabbing what she could find. Bandages, antiseptic, some pain meds, she called out, stuffing items into her pack. No antibiotics in this room. Marcus kept watch on the front while Jake helped Riley search. Amanda sat against a wall, trying to catch her breath. Is it always like this? She asked him. Lately? Yeah, Marcus admitted. You get used to it, sort of. I don't want to get used to it. Her voice was small, broken. Then you stay sharp, stay scared, and you use that fear to keep yourself alive, Marcus told her. Fear's not your enemy. Complacency is. Got it. Riley's triumphant shout came from the back. Full bottle of broad-spectrum antibiotics, some 4 bags, more painkillers, and, jackpot, 3 boxes of energy bars. That's my girl, Jake said with genuine warmth. The pounding on the front door was getting worse. The glass was starting to crack. Marcus made a command decision. Time to go. Back door? This way, Riley led them down a hallway to an emergency exit. Jake pushed the door open carefully, checking the alley beyond. Clear, he reported. They slipped out into the fading daylight. The sun was starting to set, what little of it made it through the ash clouds. They needed to move fast. Night was when the infected were most dangerous, like the darkness made them bolder, more aggressive. The route back was different, more careful. They couldn't afford another chase, not with Amanda slowing them down and their limited ammunition. Marcus led them through backyards and side streets, always moving, always watching. The weight of the day was starting to drag on him, but he pushed through it. Tommy was counting on them. They were a block from the hardware store when they heard it, gunfire. A lot of it. Coming from their base. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Double time, now. They ran, caution thrown to the wind. The hardware store came into view, and Marcus's worst fears were realized. The front was swarming with infected, dozens of them, trying to break down their defenses. From the rooftop, he could see muzzle flashes. Eric and Patricia were up there, firing down into the horde. They must have tracked our scent back, Jake said, his face grim. Led them right to our doorstep. We fixed this now, Marcus growled. Riley, get Amanda to the side entrance, the one by the loading dock. Get inside and reinforce from within. Jake, you and me, we're clearing this crowd. That's suicide, Riley protested. That's our family in there, Marcus shot back. Now move. Riley knew better than to argue. She grabbed Amanda and disappeared around the side of the building. Marcus and Jake positioned themselves behind an overturned delivery truck, giving them cover and a clear line of fire. Just like old times, Jake said, checking his ammunition. We never did this in the old times, Marcus replied. Fair point. Jake popped up and fired, dropping an infected. But we're doing it now. They worked in tandem, a rhythm born of weeks fighting side by side. Marcus would fire, drop back to reload, and Jake would cover. Then they'd switch. The infected fell, but more kept coming. It was like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. Marcus's radio crackled. Marcus, it's Eric. We're almost out of ammo up here. Riley's coming in the side, she'll bring you what we got, Marcus replied, firing again. Hold on, we're thinning them out. Thinning? Jake laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to it. Man, your definition and my definition of that word are very different. But they were making progress. The pile of bodies in front of the hardware store was growing, and the number of active infected was shrinking. Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they'd pull this off. Maybe they'd. The runner came out of nowhere. Fast infected, the worst kind, moving like an Olympic sprinter. It hit Jake before either of them could react, taking him to the ground. Jake's machete went flying, landing several feet away. Marcus spun, but he couldn't get a clear shot without risking Jake. He dropped his rifle and charged in with the bat, swinging for the fences. The bat connected with the infected's ribs, and he heard bones crack. The thing turned on him, its face a mask of rage and hunger, and Marcus swung again, catching it in the jaw. Jake scrambled for his machete, came up with it, and drove the blade through the infected's spine. It went down hard, twitching. Jake kicked it away, breathing hard. "Thanks, brother." "Always," Marcus replied, picking up his rifle. The rest of the infected were easier now, slower, less coordinated. Between Marcus and Jake on the ground and Eric and Patricia on the roof, they cleared the immediate area. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by their ragged breathing and the distant moans of infected too far away to matter. Riley's voice came through the radio. "We're inside. Front entrance is secure. You boys want to come out of the cold?" Marcus had never heard sweeter words. They made their way to the side entrance, where Riley let them in. The loading dock was dark and smelled like oil and metal, but it was safe. Marcus let himself lean against a wall for just a moment, the adrenaline starting to wear off. "Is everyone okay?" he asked. "Tommy's fever broke," Riley said, and Marcus could hear the smile in her voice. Whatever infection he had, his body fought it off. "He's weak, but he's going to be okay." "Patricia and Devin?" "Shaken but unharmed. Eric took a scratch, but it's not a bite. I already cleaned and bandaged it." Riley handed him a bottle of water. "You did good, Marcus." "We all did good," he corrected. This was a team effort. They made their way up to the break room, where the others were waiting. Tommy was sitting up now, looking pale but alert. Devin was trying not to cry with relief. Patricia had her arms around her grandson, and Eric was reloading weapons with steady hands. Amanda stood off to the side, looking lost and overwhelmed. Marcus walked over to her. "You're safe here," he told her. "We look out for each other. You're part of the group now, if you want to be." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I want to be. Thank you. Thank you so much." That night, they ate a meal of canned soup and energy bars, and it tasted like a feast. They shared stories, checked and rechecked their defenses, and planned for tomorrow. Because there was always a tomorrow, even in hell. You just had to fight hard enough to see it. Marcus took the first watch, sitting on the roof under the dark sky. Jake joined him after a while, 2 cups of weak coffee in his hands. He passed one to Marcus. "Hell of a day," Jake observed. "Hell of a life," Marcus replied, but there wasn't any bitterness in it. Just acceptance. "You think we're gonna make it? Long term, I mean." Jake's question was quiet, almost hesitant. Marcus thought about it, really thought about it. The world was gone, civilization was a memory, and the dead outnumbered the living by ratios that didn't bear thinking about. But inside that hardware store was a group of people who had each other's backs. People who fought for each other, bled for each other, survived for each other. "Yeah," Marcus said finally. "Yeah, I think we are. Because we're not just surviving, Jake. We're living. We're holding on to what makes us human. And as long as we do that, the dead can't win." Jake nodded slowly. "Deep thoughts for a football coach." "Former football coach," Marcus corrected with a slight smile. "Now hell, I don't know what I am now." "You're our leader," Jake said simply. "And a damn good one." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the dark streets below. Somewhere out there, the infected wandered, searching for prey. But up here, in this moment, they were safe. They were together. And that was enough. The next morning came too soon, announced by the same gray light that had become their constant companion. Marcus woke stiff and sore, every muscle protesting the previous day's activities. He was getting too old for this, he thought, then immediately pushed the thought away. Age didn't matter anymore. Survival did. Patricia had somehow managed to make oatmeal from their supplies, and the group gathered around for breakfast. Amanda looked better after a night's sleep, though Marcus could see the trauma lingering in her eyes. That would take time to fade, if it ever did. "We need to talk about our situation," Eric said, ever the practical one. He had his notebook out, the pages covered in his neat handwriting. "The attack yesterday depleted our ammunition significantly. We're down to maybe 40 rounds total, and that's counting everything. Food supplies are critically low. Water's okay for now, but the purification tablets won't last forever. So we need another supply run," Riley said, stating the obvious. "We need more than that," Eric continued. "We need a sustainable plan. This hardware store has served us well, but it's not a long-term solution. We need farmland, fresh water, defensible position, the ability to be self-sufficient." Marcus had been thinking the same thing. "You got a place in mind?" Eric flipped a page in his notebook, revealing a hand-drawn map. "There's a ranch about 40 miles north of here. Owned by a guy named Bill Patterson, used to be a customer of mine. Big spread, natural spring water, livestock, gardens. High ground, surrounded by open fields so you can see threats coming. If we could make it there, if it's not already overrun." "That's a big if," Jake interjected. "And 40 miles through infected territory with 7 people, limited ammo, and a kid? That's not a supply run, Eric. That's an expedition." "It's survival," Patricia spoke up. Her voice was firm, seasoned with years of hard living. "Eric's right. We can't keep doing this, running from hole to hole, scraping by on canned goods in desperation. We need a real base, a real chance." Marcus studied the map. The route Eric had drawn took them through mostly rural areas, avoiding the major population centers where the infected would be thickest. It was dangerous as hell, but staying put was dangerous too. Eventually, their luck would run out. "How long would the journey take?" he asked. "On foot, with our group, probably 3 days," Eric calculated. "We'd need to find shelter each night, move during daylight, stay quiet and careful." 3 days is a long time to stay lucky," Riley observed. "Being alive at all is lucky at this point," Amanda said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She shrank a bit under their gazes but continued. "I spent 2 days trapped in that house, thinking I was going to die. You saved me. If you're planning to head somewhere safer, I'm with you. Whatever it takes." Devin spoke up next, his young voice trying to sound brave. "I vote we go too. This place is scary. Those things know we're here now." "Sweetie," Patricia started, but Devin cut her off. "Grandma, I'm not a baby. I know what's happening. I know Mom and Dad are gone. I know the world's messed up. But I also know that staying here means eventually those things are gonna get us. At least if we try to get to the ranch, we've got a chance at something better." The kid had grown up fast. They all had. Marcus felt a swell of pride mixed with sadness. No 12-year-old should have to think like that. "Tommy?" Marcus turned to the youngest of their group. "You're still recovering. This would be hard on you. What do you think?" Tommy's face was serious beyond his 16 years. "I think I didn't survive this long to die hiding in a hardware store. I'm in." Marcus looked around the room. He saw determination, fear, hope, and resignation in various measures. But he also saw unity. Whatever choice they made, they'd make it together. "Okay," he said finally. "We go. But we do it smart. We take today to prepare, pack supplies, plan our route in detail, get as much rest as we can. Tomorrow at first light, we head north." The decision made, the group sprang into action. Eric and Jake worked on organizing their supplies, figuring out what they could carry and what they'd have to leave behind. Riley inventoried medical supplies and made sure everyone knew basic first aid. Patricia and Amanda worked on food prep, packing the most calorie-dense items they could find. Devin and Tommy, despite still recovering, helped with packing and organizing gear. Marcus spent the day studying Eric's maps and planning their route. The first day would take them through the remains of Riverside and into the farmland beyond. That was where they'd be most exposed, most vulnerable. If the infected followed them out of town, they'd have nowhere to hide in those open fields. The second day would take them through a stretch of forest, which offered cover but also uncertainty. The trees would hide them from distant infected, but they'd also limit visibility, make ambushes easier. They'd need to be sharp, alert. The third day, if they made it that far, would bring them into the hill country where the Patterson Ranch was located. High ground, as Eric had said. Defensible. But also unknown. They had no idea if Bill Patterson was still alive, if the ranch was intact, if it was already claimed by other survivors or overrun by infected. As the sun began to set on their last night in the hardware store, Marcus found himself back on the roof. This place had kept them safe for weeks, been their fortress against the chaos. Leaving felt wrong somehow, like abandoning a friend. Riley found him there, as he'd somehow known she would. She had a way of sensing when he needed company. Second thoughts, she asked, settling in beside him. Third and fourth ones too, Marcus admitted. What if we're making a mistake? What if the ranch is worse than here? What if we lose people on the way? What if we stay and die slowly? Riley countered. What if the ranch is perfect and we could have had safety but we were too scared to try? You can what if yourself to death, Marcus. Sometimes you just gotta make a choice and commit to it. When'd you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention. She smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the young woman she'd been before the world ended. Before the blood and the death and the constant terror. We're gonna make it, you know. I really believe that. What makes you so sure? Riley was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because we've got something the dead don't have. We've got each other. We've got reasons to keep fighting. They're just hunger and instinct. We're human, Marcus. That's our superpower. Marcus wanted to believe her. Hell, part of him did believe her. They'd survived this long against impossible odds. They'd saved each other, protected each other, become more than just a group of survivors. They'd become a family. Get some sleep, he told Riley. Tomorrow's gonna be a long day. You too, coach. We need you sharp. She left him alone with his thoughts in the darkening sky. Below, the streets of Riverside lay empty and broken. But to the north, somewhere out there in the darkness, maybe there was hope. Maybe there was a future. Marcus allowed himself to imagine it, the ranch, safe and secure. Gardens growing food. Clean water from the spring. Maybe even some of Patterson's livestock still alive. A place where Devin could be a kid again, where Tommy could finish growing up, where all of them could stop running and start living. It was probably a pipe dream. Probably they'd get halfway there and find the way blocked, or the ranch destroyed, or 1,000 other disasters. But probably wasn't definitely. And in this new world, possibility was sometimes all you had. The night passed slowly. Marcus took his watch shift, then Jake took his, then Eric. They rotated through, keeping guard, protecting their family while they slept. It was a routine they'd perfected over weeks, a small piece of order in the chaos. Dawn came gray and cold. They gathered their gear, everything they could carry and nothing they couldn't. Marcus took one last look around the hardware store, memorizing it. The aisles they'd barricaded, the break room where they'd shared meals, the roof where he'd spent so many nights watching for danger. Thank you, he whispered to the empty building. It had been a good home, for a while. The group assembled in the loading dock. 7 people, armed and packed, ready to face whatever came. Marcus looked at each of them, Jake, solid and dependable. Riley, fierce and compassionate. Eric, smart and prepared. Patricia, tough and nurturing. Devin, young but brave. Tommy, recovering but determined. Amanda, traumatized but fighting through it. His family. His responsibility. His reason for getting up every morning. Everybody know the plan? He asked. Nods all around. Stay close, stay quiet, watch each other's backs. We see infected, we avoid if possible, eliminate only if necessary. We conserve ammunition, conserve energy, and we don't take unnecessary risks. The goal is to all arrive at the ranch alive and together. Questions? Yeah, Jake said with a crooked grin. When we get to this ranch and it's all perfect and safe, do I finally get to take a day off? The group laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Marcus smiled. Jake, when we get to the ranch, you can take a whole week off. I'm gonna hold you to that, brother. Marcus opened the loading dock door. The street beyond was clear, the morning quiet. It wouldn't last, but for now, they had a window. Okay, people. Let's go find our future. They moved out single file, Marcus on point, Jake bringing up the rear. They navigated the familiar streets of Riverside one last time, seeing the town in the morning light. Every corner held a memory, the coffee shop where Marcus used to grade papers, the park where kids used to play, the school that would never see another class. They passed the clinic where they'd fought yesterday, the house where they'd found Amanda. Each location was a chapter in their survival story, a testament to how far they'd come. An infected stumbled into view ahead, one of the slow ones. Marcus signaled for quiet. They detoured around it, giving the dead thing a wide berth. It never even noticed them, too fixated on whatever passed for thought in its ruined brain. The edge of town approached, and with it, the open farmland Eric had marked on the map. This was the dangerous part. No cover, no buildings to duck into if things went wrong. Just open fields and hope. Once we're out there, we move fast, Marcus instructed quietly. Don't run unless we have to, but keep a steady pace. We want to cover as much ground as possible while we're exposed. They crossed the invisible line from town to country, leaving Riverside behind. The fields stretched out before them, brown and dead from neglect. No one to plant or harvest, no one to care for the land. Nature was slowly reclaiming what humanity had built. The first hour passed without incident. They made good time, Marcus setting a pace that was quick but sustainable. Patricia was the slowest, her age showing, but she kept up without complaint. Devin stuck close to his grandmother, ready to help if she needed it. The second hour brought their first real challenge. A farmhouse stood ahead, its barn collapsed, its fields empty. But there was movement around it, infected, maybe a dozen of them, wandering the property. We can go around, Eric suggested, pointing to a route that would take them west, adding maybe 30 minutes to their journey. Marcus studied the situation. The farmhouse had a well, he could see the pump from here. Water was going to be crucial on this journey. Hold up, he said. Riley, how are we on water? She checked. Maybe a day's worth if we ration. 2 days if we really stretch it. That well could refill our supplies, give us cushion. Marcus weighed the risk versus reward. Not worth it, Jake argued. Too many of them, too much noise if we have to fight. We find water somewhere else. Or we end up desperate and dehydrated on day 2, Marcus countered. He knew Jake was probably right, but the opportunity was there. What if we create a distraction? Draw them away from the well, small team gets the water while they're occupied? That's risky, Riley said, but he could see her calculating the odds. Everything's risky, Marcus replied. But we do it smart, we can pull it off. They spent 10 minutes working out the details. Jake and Eric would create a distraction on the far side of the property, using noise to draw the infected away. Marcus, Riley, and Tommy would approach the well, fill their containers, and get out. Patricia, Devin, and Amanda would stay back, ready to provide cover if needed. 15 minutes, Marcus said. We're in and out. If it goes wrong, we abort and regroup at the fallback point. He indicated a spot on the map, a small bridge over a creek about a mile north. 15 minutes, Jake confirmed. Let's do this. Jake and Eric circled around, moving carefully through the dead fields. Marcus watched them go, then focused on the well. The infected were still wandering aimlessly, no indication they'd noticed the group. His radio crackled softly. In position, Jake's voice reported. Execute, Marcus replied. A moment later, the sound of breaking glass and banging metal erupted from the far side of the farmhouse. The infected reacted immediately, their heads snapping toward the noise. As one, they began shambling in that direction, drawn by the commotion. Now, Marcus whispered. He, Riley, and Tommy moved quickly toward the well. The old pump was still functional, thank God. Riley started working the handle while Marcus and Tommy kept watch. The pump squeaked and groaned, and Marcus winced at every sound. But the infected were focused on Jake and Eric's distraction, moving away. Water began to flow, clear and cold. Riley filled their bottles and containers with practiced efficiency. Marcus's eyes never stopped scanning, watching for threats. Tommy was beside him, tense but holding it together. Almost done, Riley breathed. That's when Marcus saw it. One infected, smaller than the others, had broken away from the group. Maybe the sounds of the pump had caught its attention, or maybe it was just dumb luck. But it was heading right toward them, moving with that horrible shambling gait. Company, Marcus said quietly. He raised his rifle, sighting down the barrel. The infected was maybe 40 yards out. 30. 20. Got it, Tommy said suddenly. Before Marcus could react, the kid stepped forward with a hunting knife and met the infected head-on. The thing lunged, and Tommy sidestepped, driving the blade up under its jaw with a technique that spoke of hard-earned experience. The infected dropped, and Tommy wiped his blade on its clothes, his face grim. Nice work, Marcus said, meaning it. The kid had skills. Done, Riley announced, securing the last container. Let's go. They pulled back to the rally point where Patricia, Devin, and Amanda waited. Minutes later, Jake and Eric emerged from the fields, breathing hard but grinning. Like shooting fish in a barrel, Jake reported. They chased us for a while, but we lost them in a drainage ditch. Water? Eric asked. Riley held up the full containers. Enough for 3 days, maybe 4. Then we've got a cushion, Marcus said with satisfaction. The risk had paid off. Let's keep moving. The rest of the day passed in a blur of walking, watching, and occasional detours around infected. By the time the sun started setting, Marcus estimated they'd covered about 15 miles. Good progress, but they were all exhausted. We need shelter, Patricia said, stating the obvious. The older woman was flagging, her face drawn with fatigue. Marcus consulted the map. There's a small town ahead, name of Clearwater. Population was maybe 300 before all this. Eric marked a fire station on the outskirts. Brick building, defensible, might still have supplies. Fire station works, Jake agreed. Those places are built tough. Clearwater appeared on the horizon as the light faded. It was small, just a handful of streets and buildings, but Marcus could see infected moving in the twilight. Not a lot, but enough to be dangerous in the dark. The fire station sat on the edge of town, just like Eric had said. It was a small building, just 2 bays, but the doors were closed and the structure looked intact. They approached carefully, weapons ready. I'll check it, Jake volunteered. He moved to a side door, tested it. Locked. He pulled out his lock-picking set, a skill he'd picked up somewhere along the way, and went to work. 30 seconds later, the lock clicked open. They cleared the building room by room. The main bay held a fire truck, still parked and waiting for a call that would never come. The living quarters were empty but showed signs of hasty evacuation. And in the kitchen, they hit the jackpot, canned goods, water bottles, even some freeze-dried camping meals. They must have stocked up when things went bad, Eric observed, already cataloging the supplies. This is enough food for a week, maybe more. We take what we can carry, leave the rest, Marcus decided. But tonight, we rest here. We secure the doors, set a watch rotation, and we get some real sleep. They ate well that night, relatively speaking. Patricia heated up some canned stew on a camping stove, and they broke out the freeze-dried meals. It wasn't gourmet, but it was hot and filling, and that was all that mattered. As darkness fell, they set up sleeping areas in the living quarters. The fire station had actual beds, a luxury they hadn't enjoyed in weeks. Marcus insisted the oldest and youngest take them, Patricia, Devin, and Tommy. The rest would make do with sleeping bags on the floor. "I'll take first watch," Marcus announced. "I'll join you," Amanda said quietly. "I'm too wired to sleep anyway." They positioned themselves in the watchroom, which had windows overlooking the street. Marcus showed Amanda how to use the radio, how to recognize different types of infected at a distance, basic protocols if something went wrong. "You're good at this," she observed. "Leading people, I mean. Keeping everyone safe." "I try," Marcus said. "Don't always succeed." "You succeeded with me." Amanda's voice was soft. "I would have died in that house if you hadn't stopped." "Jake wanted to keep moving," Marcus admitted. "Said we didn't have time." "He wasn't wrong. But you stopped anyway. That says something about you." She paused, gathering courage. "Before all this, I was a therapist. I spent my days listening to people's problems, helping them cope with stress and trauma. Seems almost funny now, doesn't it? Like those problems were so small compared to this." "Fear is fear," Marcus said. "Pain is pain. Just because the world ended doesn't mean what people felt before wasn't real." "That's very philosophical for a football coach." Marcus smiled. "You'd be surprised how much philosophy goes into coaching teenagers. Half the job was helping them believe in themselves, work as a team, overcome obstacles. Turns out those skills translate pretty well to the apocalypse." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the dark street. An infected wandered past, a woman in a tattered dress, her movements slow and aimless. They let her pass undisturbed. "Do you think we'll make it?" Amanda asked. "To the ranch, I mean. Do you really think it'll be there, that it'll be safe?" Marcus thought about lying, offering false comfort. But she deserved the truth. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe it's perfect. Maybe it's overrun. Maybe Bill Patterson is still alive and has been holding down the fort. Maybe he's one of them now. But I know that staying in Riverside meant dying slow. At least this way, we've got a chance. And sometimes, a chance is all you can ask for." Amanda nodded slowly. "A chance. I can live with that." The night passed quietly. Marcus's watch ended, and Riley took over. He found a sleeping bag and stretched out, his body aching with the day's exertion. Sleep claimed him quickly, dreamless and deep. He woke to pale light filtering through the windows and the smell of something cooking. Patricia had found coffee, actual coffee, in the fire station supplies and had brewed a pot. The aroma alone was enough to make Marcus feel almost human again. "Day 2, Jake announced, already geared up and ready. "One day closer to paradise or perdition." "Let's aim for paradise," Riley suggested, accepting a cup of coffee from Patricia with reverent gratitude. They packed up the supplies they could carry, leaving the fire station in better shape than they'd found it. Force of habit, Marcus supposed, or maybe just clinging to civilization's remnants. They left a note too, just in case other survivors passed through, food and water in the kitchen. "Stay safe. Head north to Patterson Ranch if you're looking for sanctuary." It was a small gesture, probably meaningless. But it felt important. The second day's journey took them into the forest Eric had marked. The trees were thick here, blocking out much of the lawn sunlight. It was quieter under the canopy, sound dampened by the vegetation. That made Marcus nervous. Quiet meant they couldn't hear threats approaching. They moved in a tight group, no one straying far. The forest felt wrong somehow, too still, like it was holding its breath. Marcus's instincts were screaming at him, warning of danger he couldn't see. "Anyone else feeling this?" Riley whispered. "Yeah," Jake confirmed. "We're being watched." "Infected?" Marcus asked. "Don't think so. Something else. They discovered what something else meant when they entered a small clearing and found themselves surrounded. Not by infected, but by living people. 7 of them, armed with guns and makeshift weapons, looking hard and dangerous. Well, well, said the leader, a tall man with a scarred face and cold eyes. Look what wandered into our territory. Marcus slowly raised his hands, signaling the others to do the same. We're just passing through. No trouble. See, that's where you're wrong, Scarface said, moving closer. Everything that passes through our territory is our business. And everything you're carrying? That's our property now. We can't give you our supplies, Marcus said, keeping his voice level. We've got kids with us, elderly. We need what we have to survive. Not my problem. Scarface gestured, and his people moved in, surrounding Marcus's group. You can hand it over peaceful-like, or we can take it. Your choice, but choose quick. Marcus's mind raced, calculating odds. 7 against 7, but his group had kids and Patricia. These people looked like they'd been surviving through violence and intimidation for a while. This could go bad real quick. Marcus, Jake said quietly. A warning and a question. Before Marcus could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Everyone turned. Standing at the edge of the clearing was an older man, maybe 65, with a hunting rifle trained on Scarface. He was flanked by 3 others, all armed, all looking competent. Patterson? Eric said, hope and disbelief mixing in his voice. The old man's weathered face split into a grin. Eric Walsh, you son of a gun. Thought you'd be dead by now. Not yet, Eric replied. Who the hell are you? Scarface demanded. Name's Bill Patterson, and this is my land you're squatting on, the old man replied pleasantly. These folks are friends of mine. So here's how this is gonna go, you're gonna apologize for your rudeness, you're gonna head back whatever hole you crawled out of, and you're gonna be grateful I don't shoot you for trespassing. For a long moment, nobody moved. The air was thick with potential violence. Then Scarface's shoulders slumped. He knew when he was outgunned. No harm meant, he muttered. We're leaving. Smart choice, Patterson said. He kept his rifle trained on them until they disappeared into the forest. Only then did he lower the weapon and turn his full attention to Marcus's group. You folks look like you've had a hell of a time. That's putting it mildly, Marcus replied. You really know Eric? Did his taxes for 15 years, Patterson confirmed. Good man, always honest. Any friend of Eric's is welcome at my ranch. Come on, it's not far now. You can rest, resupply, and tell me how the hell you survived this long. The ranch appeared like a mirage through the trees. It was everything Eric had promised and more, a main house, sturdy and well-maintained, surrounded by outbuildings and fenced pastures. Marcus could see gardens, still producing vegetables. Could hear chickens clucking somewhere. Solar panels on the roof caught what little sunlight made it through the clouds. Welcome to Fort Patterson, Bill said with obvious pride. Been working on this place since the first reports of infection came through. Got walls, got power, got food and water. It ain't perfect, but it's survived so far. Marcus felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. It took him a moment to identify it, hope. Real, tangible hope. They entered through a reinforced gate, and Marcus saw more people inside, maybe a dozen, all working at various tasks. A small community, functioning and organized. You've got a whole operation here, Riley observed. Takes a village, Bill replied. Or in this case, it takes whoever's willing to work together. We've got farmers, builders, a doctor, even a teacher for the kids. Everyone contributes, everyone survives. That night, Marcus's group sat down to their first real meal in months. Fresh vegetables from the garden, chicken that had been alive that morning, bread baked from stored flour. They ate until they couldn't eat anymore, and still, the food kept coming. Around the table, Patterson's people shared their stories. How they'd come together, how they'd fortified the ranch, the close calls and hard losses they'd endured. It was familiar and different at the same time, a mirror of Marcus's own experiences. "So what's next for you folks?" Bill asked Marcus. "You're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. We could use good people." Marcus looked around at his group. At Jake, Riley, Eric, Patricia, Devin, Tommy, and Amanda. His family. They looked back at him, waiting for his decision. "What do you think?" he asked them. "We came looking for a home. Looks like we found one." "I'm in," Jake said immediately. "Me too," Riley agreed. One by one, they all nodded, voiced their agreement. Even Amanda, who'd been with them the shortest time, smiled and said, "If you'll have me." "Then it's settled," Bill said, raising a glass of water and a toast. "To new friends, new family, and the future we're gonna build together." "To the future," Marcus echoed, and they all drank. Later, Marcus found himself on the porch of the main house, looking out over the ranch. The walls, the gardens, the people moving about with purpose. It wasn't the world they'd lost. It wasn't safety or certainty or any of the things they'd taken for granted before. But it was a chance. It was hope. It was a tomorrow worth fighting for. Riley joined him, as she so often did. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually did it." "We did," Marcus agreed. "And now the real work begins. Building something that lasts. Making this more than just survival." Sounds like a challenge. You know me. I love a good challenge. They stood together, watching the shadows lengthen as another day ended. Somewhere out there, beyond the walls, the infected still roamed. The world was still broken, still dangerous, still capable of taking everything away in an instant. But inside these walls, there was life. There was community. There was hope. And sometimes, Marcus thought, that was enough. Sometimes, that was everything. The shadows continued their eternal dance over a fallen world, but here, in this small corner of what remained, the light still burned. And as long as it did, they would keep fighting, keep building, keep believing in the possibility of tomorrow. That was their legend. Not one of individual glory or heroic sacrifice, but of strength found in unity, of survival forged through cooperation, of humanity persisting against impossible odds. The dead owned the world outside. But inside Fort Patterson, the living had claimed their own small piece of forever. And they would defend it, nurture it, and pass it on to the next generation. Because that was what survivors did. That was what family did. That was what it meant to be human in a world of shadows. The end.